undergraduate and postgraduate courses inspiring the next generation of changemakers. And on top of all of that, she's worked on various projects from ACT Health to the ABC on how to bring about social impact. So it's so exciting to have you on board with us today, Sally. Now, I'm of course not doing justice to any of all the things that you all do. So there's going to be plenty more questions where we can get a chance to meet you more. So please, this is not everything that our amazing guests do. So next we have Andrew Merton. Andrew works as an executive branch manager in social policy and cabinet for Chief Minister, Treasury and Economic Development Director. That must be a mouthful to stay at parties, I bet, Andrew.
It is, and introducing yourself at every meeting, it takes up the first few minutes. Yeah.
They won't forget you.
No.
So his branch is responsible for some incredible work. They advise ACT Public Services on policy matters relating to social and economic planning and security. They work across the community on key policies and programs from regional engagement, regulatory reform, to the Office of LGBTQI+ affairs and strengthening ACT Gov. Andrew, so I still remember, I think it was late last year, Nazi and I, we were working together, we were at a cafe, and that's when I got the email from Andrew being like, hey Vindhya, ACT Gov is interested in working with Solab on SICON, and we both kind of squealed sitting there in the lobby. We got a little bit of attention from those around us, but it was such a exciting moment for us, and we're so grateful to you for backing this vision and being on board to support this.
Happy to do it, thanks.
Thank you, Andrew. Last but not least, Nazia, I know she's briefly given you the LinkedIn background, but I want to talk a bit more about her because I don't think she would ever give herself the true credit that she deserves. So she's more than a founder, she's the heart and soul of the Social Outcomes Lab. This organisation was created out of years of experience in social and economic policy development and implementation, and I've honestly never met someone who works around the clock like she does to create real changes and works tirelessly to support and give back to those in need, and she does it all with such grace and humility. I absolutely love you, Nazia, and can't wait to hear what your thoughts are too on all of our questions. So sorry, I talk really fast, I need to breathe a little.
No, you're amazing. Thank you.
So for today, it's time to start the rapid fire round of questions. So since I've done a little bit of an intro, I'm gonna let you, Andrew, Nazia and Sally, give a bit of an overview of a bit more of the work that you do. So perhaps how would you define social innovation? Sally, maybe I'll give it to you to start off, if you don't mind me putting someone on the spot.
Sure. Look, thank you, Vindhya. Thanks for the introduction, and it's a pleasure to be here. It feels so formal when we're doing it online like this, and I wish we could be together in person as we had planned in March this year, but I think we're all doing the best we can at the moment, and I hope everyone's safe. So it's a pleasure to be here with everybody. Thank you, Nazia. Thank you, Vindhya, for the invitation. And I just love partnering with you guys. And so it's always a pleasure. Maybe a little bit of background about where I come from with respect to social innovation, and then it was a bit dangerous, maybe, Vindhya, passing to the academic to provide a definition, but I'll try not to be too dry and boring. So look, I guess, I think there are so many wicked problems in the world, climate change, poverty, inequality, whether it's gender inequality, racial inequality, economic inequality. I think all of us could rattle off a whole bunch of social issues that maybe we have a lived experience of, or who, we have some visibility of. And so what I do is help people and organisations grapple with these wicked problems through education and applied research. And I think what excites me most about working in this field is bringing evidence to the kind of challenges, the social challenges that we have, and bringing evidence to decision making around social problems. And so I'm lucky to work for the Australian National University, the ANU, where we create evidence and we share evidence to help address some of these wicked problems. So I guess when, thinking about social innovation and looking at definitions, I have this book that I wanted to show you. It doesn't look very exciting, but it's a book that's written by Danielle Lowe. Danielle is an academic at UTS, the University of Technology in Sydney. So she's written a whole book on social innovation. And whilst many people think that social innovation is a new thing, it's actually been around for quite a long time in different forms. And so we've heard a lot about social innovation and social entrepreneurship in the last few years. It's become a kind of popular label, and it's kind of a way of sexying up kind of approaches to addressing social issues. But ultimately, social innovation is about doing good and doing well in order to achieve economic and social outcomes. And so at the root of social innovation is about this tension that exists between achieving economic goals and achieving social goals. And that's been around since kind of Adam Smith and his writings in the 1700s. So none of that is kind of new, but this label social innovation is I guess a little newer. And the good thing about labels is that they help to bring together like-minded people. And so that's, I think that's hopefully what we're doing in this conference, is connecting like-minded people. So one of the things that I think makes social innovation different from other types of innovation, so technical innovation, is that it's about developing new and unique ways of addressing social issues. But importantly, because it's a social issue, it's impossible to sit in a room on your own and develop the solution. And so the innovation in this way of addressing social issues is, it can often come from the process of co-creating and the process of talking to others and trying to understand the problem from different perspectives in order to innovate and come up with new ways of addressing the issue. And so I think what's unique about social innovation compared to other types of innovation is this social process that has to occur for any social change to take place. And so I guess that's why, conferences like this, where we kind of get together like-minded people and we try and get people to collaborate and be innovative in the way that we're addressing social problems are critical and really important. So that's my probably too long an answer, Bindia, but I'll shut up now and back to you.
No, not at all. That was a wonderful answer. Thank you so much, Sally. I think I would have snoozed off if it was like reading out of the textbook, but you were great. I loved it. I wish I had you as a lecturer while I was at the ANU.
I'm taking notes.
Yeah.
I love that answer. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Thanks, Sally. Yeah, I back Shadab. So Andrew, what are your thoughts on social innovation from the perspective of policy change and policy making?
Yeah, that was a really great overview, I think, that Sally gave. I found that really interesting. I mean, from my perspective, because I'm probably in some ways at the other end of the spectrum, I sort of consider myself, very much a practitioner of policy and a public servant. So I, sort of coming through early in my career, I was working in innovation, but more in the economic and business development side of things before moving over to social policy a few years ago. And so I guess the way I have a very pragmatic approach to social innovation, which is we have these problems that we're addressing, social problems in the community. We need to find solutions to them, and what's the kind of most sensible and effective way to address them in the short, medium, or long term. So I've not really studied so much the theory of it, but I do agree with the point that Sally was making at the end about the importance of the social processes that go into social innovation. I think that as a government employee, that's something that we've sort of been focusing more on over the last few years. In particular, the ACT government's done a lot more work on our community engagement, but also kind of participatory democracy type processes, dipping our toe into that space and trying to engage the community and understand their needs and co-design those processes, which is, I think, hard for governments to do, and to do well, particularly when the pace of the work is quite quick and resources are quite stretched. But I think that has become so critical now with the way the level of trust that communities have in governments all over the world. That kind of social aspect of the process, I think, is equally as important from my perspective now as, I guess, the end as well.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. It is interesting, hearing both sides from the academic and the policymaker side. I think that there is still a lot of similarities in it. It's not, I wouldn't say, two different worlds in terms of innovation is trying to find solutions to the problem, of course, and you're doing it with limited resources, and you're trying to be as efficient yet create the most impact as possible. Nazia, I would like to hear your thoughts on this, because I know you've done a few wonderful projects and you're working on a few that are currently in the pipeline. Where do you see the role of innovation in social change, which can be quite tricky because social issues are multifaceted?
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. I think this is what makes tackling kind of social issues quite complex, that everything is really, really related. So, for example, if you have low income, you're, more likely to have lower lower access to housing, to health, to mental health, and all sorts of things, and it all kind of spirals, and it all kind of comes together. So it's hard to know kind of where to sort of focus. I think for me, one of the things that I noted in my over this span of my career, and I focused it on the science of measuring outcomes, and I think what I really found was that in a lot of cases, and for example, outcomes for Aboriginal people is a really good example of this one, that even though expenditure has gone up per person or in total over the decades, the outcomes haven't actually changed. And I think that's why social innovation is so important, because it means that it's not just about money, it's about you need to be doing things differently. And I think for me, the crux of social innovation, really the way to succeed, is for collaboration across different parts of the world. So government, academia, the private sector, communities, and really getting a deep, starting with getting a really, really deep understanding of what exactly people are facing. For example, as an economist, there's, an assumption that we all learned that human beings behave in a rational way. And we've seen with the toilet paper situation that is just not true. Nobody behaves in a rational way. And it's also the case that, people that are, for example, facing mental health issues or domestic violence, they're going through particular experiences, and when we're trying to design solutions, we really need to understand that above and beyond kind of just the theoretical aspects of what should work and what shouldn't work. So I feel like experimentation is a really important aspect, and I think that's why kind of I wanted to go down this lab route, where we can kind of bring people together from all sorts of different aspects. So we love working directly with communities. We absolutely love working with academia, because they give us that kind of depth that we wouldn't be able to reach on our own. We love love working with the corporate sector because they bring a different kind of pace and a different way to look at things. Of course, we love working with government. And so I think, you know, innovation to me is that, like, people looking at the same problem from different angles, but putting the person and the person's experience right at the center of it, and putting some science around testing what works, and then, you know, repeating it if it doesn't, trying something new if it doesn't, but doing that quickly, because we need to make change happen a little bit quicker than maybe how it currently happens.
Yes, I love that, Nazia. It's totally about putting the person at the center of it. I saw an article by Social Change Central the other day about stop trying to be the heropreneur. I think that's what they titled it. And it was a wonderfully written article that I loved, quite enjoyed reading. So Andrew and Sally, I would love to hear more from you guys as to what you see the role of Canberra. Canberra is obviously very unique in the sense that it is the policy central of Australia. But I mean, governments, I mean, every state has their state governments as well. But like, based on the unique demographic and what goes on in the lifestyle in Canberra, what do you see as a role of social innovation coming out of Canberra? Its impact on the rest of Australia? Do you feel like Canberra is a separate world to the rest of the cities, or what do you think?
Do you want me to go first on that one?
Go for it.
So yeah, I think you've sort of touched on a number of really interesting, important issues there. You know, in some ways, the ACT is, you know, quite different demographically from the rest of the country, which has its benefits and its downfall, I guess. But you know, what's always excited me about working in the ACT government specifically, as compared to the federal bureaucracy, is the opportunity we have to kind of move really quickly and do some kind of small, innovative things that in some cases can be pretty nation leading. Although, and I guess we've got a community as well, you know, which I guess by the demographics to some extent is quite open to trying new things and able and, you know, willing to give them a go and see whether or not they work. So that's always been really exciting for me. I mean, earlier this year and last year we did some nation-leading work on changes to cannabis laws in the ACT to kind of reduce the criminal penalties associated with that, which hadn't been done in Australia to the same extent that we've done it here. You know, we're doing some work on legislation in the LGBTIQ space as well to make Canberra more inclusive, which again, I think we've sort of looked at a number of the larger governments around the country that have, you know, possibly had an appetite to try something at one point but run into barriers along the way, and either, you know, haven't been able to see it through or have just kind of run into issues with the community. So that's been really, really fascinating and rewarding from my perspective. And then I think the other thing which kind of excites me about working in the ACT government is we are quite small and spread across such a really wide range of functions, both at the kind of municipal and traditional state government functions, which means, you know, we're often not as well resourced as, you know, New South Wales or Victoria or a number of the other states. So we're kind of forced into being innovative and needing to find solutions that, you know, don't require a lot of money or a lot of funding, and, you know, it gets said a lot, but because we're so close to the community as well, if something's working or not working, you find out about it pretty quickly as well. So I've always found that tremendously rewarding, and, you know, really sort of loved the opportunity to use the ACT government where we can, in some ways, as a bit of a leader or a vanguard in some areas to try, you know, progressive, innovative, new ideas in the social and economic space, and, you know, show that it can be done, and hopefully see some of those lessons either picked up, for better or worse, by other governments around Australia.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right in the sense that because it's smaller, it's often actually been the nation leader in terms of a lot of our social policies, which you've seen that Canberra's been like highly renowned for the things that they've done, especially in the space of LGBTQI rights plus rights. Sorry. So Sally, what are your thoughts on in terms of when social innovation is taught in Canberra? Is there an edge of policy added to it, or do you find that the organisations within ACT are tapping into that close proximity to government more?
Right, well, it's kind of interesting because ANU, of course, and Canberra attracts a lot of international students.
Yeah.
And so the students I have in my classroom are both domestic students, so they might be locally based here in Canberra, or they might be from outside of Canberra, but Australian. And often they're also international students. So the highest number of students will come from countries in Asia, so China, India, Brazil, Malaysia. And so there's, whilst, you know, kind of we think about Canberra as small and in some ways a kind of, you know, people talk about it being a bubble, we actually have all of these international students who are living here, bringing an international perspective to the city as well. And so what I often have in the classroom with respect to looking at social issues and social innovation are not just what's happening locally in Canberra, but what's happening around the world and globally in their own home countries, students' home countries. And so, you know, what are the issues in China? What are the social issues in India? What are the social issues in Brazil and Malaysia and Indonesia? And so, you know, that there's often a lot of similarities, but in those countries, they're facing really, really big challenges around gender inequality and poverty and, you know, lots of issues. So I guess, you know, from an ANU perspective, whilst we are one campus here in Canberra, we actually have a melting pot of experiences that are in the classroom. But I guess I'll talk kind of specifically about, you know, Canberra and why I think Canberra and social innovation is, you know, a good marriage, if you like. And it really, I don't have much more to say than what Andrew has said, to be honest. I mean, I think that Canberra is a progressive territory. It has people who are passionate about, you know, change and social change and trying to do things differently. And it's a kind of close-knit community it's really a town, 350,000 people or so. So that kind of provides a really nice environment, I think. It provides conditions for social innovation, I think, especially when there's a government that's also committed to that. And the other thing I'll note about Canberra is the introduction of the wellbeing measures that I think are an indicator of the innovation that that exists in Canberra in the public policy space. So, and this goes to this issue of the tension between economic and social outcomes. So the ACT government took a stance and said, we don't want to just measure economic outcomes and GDP. We want to have an idea as to what our social outcomes are as well. And so Andrew probably knows this work better than me, but there's 12 domains of well-being in the ACT now, and so the government are starting to measure things like environment and climate and living standards and housing and housing affordability, which they're really important things that, you know, we know the saying, if what gets measured gets done. So that's, I think, really exciting work that's happening here locally in Canberra that provides amazing conditions for social innovation and social change. And so that's why I think we can work together here locally in Canberra. But I'd also say that the ANU is Australia's national university. You know, we were set up to support the nation and to kind of progress national issues of national importance. And so I guess we also at ANU try to influence kind of national and federal policy, public policy. And so, you know, I think there's a place that ANU plays in looking at social innovation at the federal level as well, not just here locally in Canberra, and indeed internationally.
Yeah, I think you've touched on all the things that I absolutely love about Canberra, and being a Melburnian, I still rep it every single day. I get a lot of hate, but that's okay. I will take that. Canberra is worth it.
I love that it's changed, because there's still a bit of Canberra bashing around, I think, but
it's unacceptable.
I think anyone who's lived here is becoming a proud Canberran these days.
You know what? We don't care. Bash Canberra, don't come here. It's cool. You know,
yeah.
The city to ourselves. It's cool. Sorry.
So true.
So now I'd like to bring on our facilitators. We've got incredible Janani Williams and Shadab Pavez. These are just two. I think we've got Sally will also be hosting some webinars. We also have our lovely Annika, who's not on at the moment. So I'm going to hand it over to Nazia to give an introduction about our wonderful facilitators.
Okay, I'm going to do a quick introduction so that we can go on with our rapid round. But basically, I could spend days talking about these people. So I'll start with Janani. So Janani is absolutely brilliant. She's a lecturer in actuarial studies, postgrad at ANU. She focuses on using data for bringing about social change in the health and human services space. The particular focus on maternal health and domestic and family violence, amongst other things as well. But also, Janani and I, we've known each other since we were 16 years old, and I won't say how many years that is, but that's a really, really long time. And she has always been so we went through college and uni, and we worked together as well. And she's always been an absolute star. She's got a brilliant, brilliant mind. But the best thing about Janani is she has basically the kindest heart. And I think that's really what makes her so good at her work as well, because when she's analyzing and building all these cool models, she's thinking about the person kind of. So I'm so humble, so happy to have Janani as a part of SICON. She's been an advisor to the Social Outcomes Lab since we started, and we've worked on projects together, and we absolutely love working together. So hopefully it's a long journey. Absolutely. So thank you, Janani.
Thank you.
And Shadab, what can I say about Shadab? He is, there's so many things to say about him, right? So he has a brilliant, brilliant mind as well. He's also very much like a doer. He can take any process, make it completely efficient, and kind of just take things to the next level. So Shadab's background is in e-commerce and marketing. He's working with us as a specialist consultant. He's also working on other organizations that bring about social change. And he also runs his own digital marketing company in Bangladesh, sitting here in Australia, where he
advise and mentor.
Advise and mentor, my bad. But it's your company, you own it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still a shareholder, but it's
And so it's really cool because he works with small to medium enterprises to get them to be able to get their products out, particularly using Alibaba.com. So that's, obviously a massive platform. So in that way, he's kind of really helping shape everyday people and kind of giving them access to livelihoods and bringing about that kind of sophistication. Shadab and I actually also know each other from university. So again, I won't say how long that is because it's just really, really a long time, about 70 years, right? And we're working on different projects together. Shadab's lineup is really amazing as well. He's talking to some international speakers, as well as focusing on the future of work. So thank you so much to both of you. And of course, as Bindia said, Sally is also going to be a facilitator. Sally is a really good friend of mine as well. We haven't known each other for 70 years, but it feels like that as well. And Andrew, no doubt we will, next webinar, we'll be saying something similar too. So but thank you to all of you. Thank you, Bindia. So let's do this, this rapid round, right?
So rapid round, the rules are very simple. It's rapid, so whatever comes to you organically, short and simple. And so some of the questions, it might be like describe in one word. So if the person before you has already used the word, you can't use that. Those are the only rules. And feel free to unmute and like maybe I'll pick the first person and then you can just jump in when you feel like they're finished saying their part. So the first question would be, in one word, describe your future, sorry, I'm not describing this very well. Describe in one word what the vision for the future is in your eyes. And I'm gonna let Janani start off.
This was not on the list. I know, right? You've just come in from nowhere.
It wasn't.
Let me just say thank you to, I didn't get a chance to say thank you to everyone. Thank you for everyone for all your hard work and all this. Really pleased to be here. Can you repeat the question? The vision for the future.
Yeah. So how would you describe the vision for the future that you see? Like how do you see the future?
My one word would be equality.
Ooh.
Good one.
All right, how about you, Shadab, since we haven't heard from you much yet?
Collaborative.
Ooh, yeah. Andrew.
I was thinking bright, but I guess that's more of an adjective than a process or a change. But...
No, that's great. Bright can mean so many things. Sally, how about you?
I'm trying to put this into positive words, but all I can find is less divisive. I'd like to flip it
Cohesive?
the other way. Thank you. Cohesive. Doesn't quite explain what anyway, more cohesive.
Yeah. So I'll just go with happy.
I love that. Okay, so next question. Who is a social change maker that inspires you? And would you be willing to walk a day in their shoes? I'll let Nazia start with that one.
Okay, I thought about this. I had some privy to knowing the questions. So I'm going with, there's so many to choose from. I'm going with Jacinda Ardern because I think her leadership style is sensational. And I think that's a quality to really strive to, being that person that can bring everyone together and give them hope for the future. Well, I would love to walk in her shoes. I don't think I would be able to, but I would love to.
She's incredible. Who would like to go next? Anyone's allowed to jump in?
I'll go. Mine was Michelle Obama. I've just very recently read her book, so it really struck in my mind how incredibly impressive this woman is. And in particular, she speaks about her campaign to reduce childhood obesity, the Let's Move campaign. And I remember watching it from a distance and how she was doing push-ups, on the Ellen show and all that. But she talks about how she brought in fast food giants to reduce the sugar intake in drinks, but just the way she coordinated that whole thing, it was really inspiring.
Yeah, I loved her documentary on Netflix.
Yes.
What's that?
All right, Shadab, off you go.
This is a really hard one because I didn't know what social innovation and social business and social entrepreneurship was until like 4 or 5 years ago. Now, I think it would be everybody that works at the organization I currently work for, which is Choice. It's a consumer advocacy group in Australia. It's the largest Australian consumer advocacy group. And everybody is just really dedicated in what they do. It's a nonprofit. And every part of the organization, the way it runs, it's very mission driven. And they've been around for 60 years and it's just it's a pleasure going to work every day and seeing how people are dedicating their work, their lives to, and their work and their career to bringing about change, positive change, and standing up for consumers' rights. Yeah, it's a choice, I'd say.
It's amazing.
So Andrew or Sally, who wants to go first?
I'll go. So for me, it's probably Katrina Fanning, ACT Person of the Year this year. And Nazia sort of spoke earlier about the need to make significant improvements in the lives of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. I've sort of had the opportunity to be involved in some of the work on the new Closing the Gap agreement, which Katrina's been really central in leading at the ACT and the national level as well. I've just been so impressed and kind of inspired by the progress that's being made there. Again, it's a bit of a social innovation, the way that that's being done this time around with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voices at the table with government. So yeah, Katrina Fanning for me. And no, I don't think I'd be able to walk a day in her shoes. I don't think I'd even try.
All right, Sally.
Yeah, look, I mean, so you used the term India heropreneur.
Yeah.
This is a label that was introduced by someone at Oxford University at the business school there. I can't remember her name, but she's done a whole bunch of research on the heropreneur and the issues with the heropreneur, which is it's all about them, right? It's all about that individual. And I think social change is a collaborative effort. And so I kind of hesitate at wanting to single out any one person, because I know that those people are surrounded by a bunch of people who are helping them. And it's anything to do with social change is a collaborative effort. You know, if they've got a partner or kids and people working with them, they're all people who are helping them in some way. And so I kind of struggle. I talk to students about this, that I don't teach for students to become heroes. And, you know, even though I teach leadership, there's a whole kind of literature on the leader as hero that I'd really try and move away from that way of thinking about social change and leadership. So yeah, I know that's not the answer you wanted to hear, but yeah, I can. People come to mind. I guess one person that comes to mind is Rosie Batty, who, you know, she, I think, was incredible in. For those of you who don't know, Rosie Batty was an Australian woman who lost her son to family violence. I don't know how old her son was, but 10, I think. And that started a process that she undertook in Australia to try and address family violence in Australia. And I just, as a parent, the hurt that she must have been experiencing losing her son, to then be able to pick herself up and do the work she did on family violence in Australia. And she was, you know, just an everyday person. I think, you know, I really admire the work she did. And I know that she was probably burnt out by the end because she also copped a lot of criticism and trolling on the internet and God knows what else. But, you know, I think she kind of demonstrates what it is to live through something, be able to do something about it, and then to show how resilient someone working in this space needs to be.
Yeah, stories like that are truly incredible, like Rosie's. So next question that I'm going to say, this one, it's okay if the person before you said it, because I know it's a bit hard to narrow down, but what is one social issue that is close to your heart? And perhaps if it's related to the sessions you'll be hosting, Janani and Shadab and Sally, feel free to elaborate on the topics that are going to be coming. But you can say multiple if in that case, if it's two different topics. I'll get Nazia to start this time.
Oh no, go ahead.
Oh my God, there's just so many, right? But I think probably employment, financial stress, they're probably the things that I'm very, very passionate about. Probably the reason that I studied economics. I think money can change people's lives, and they can stop them from being their kind of best potential in lots of ways, right? So one is a thing of not having enough money, so access to finances. But then there's also another thing around employment, which is that you know, I'd love to see a world where everyone gets to do exactly the job that they want to do, and that you're not sort of donating your life to doing something just because that's you need that to survive. So I think that's kind of for me, vision in Soul Lab is a bit of concentration on that for the next foreseeable future. And of course we know that itself is linked to so many other things, but yeah.
Shadab?
Yeah, there are two main areas that I really that's close to my heart. One is fourth industrial revolution and how it impacts society. So fourth industrial revolution is the next stage in our industrial revolution, where automation and digital ways of doing work and interacting with each other will put a lot of people out of work. That's the worst case scenario. But it really interests. It's an important, I guess, outcome that we need to be prepared for. But what I really enjoy about this topic is how the positives that are coming out in terms of certain areas of the world that are benefiting from the fourth industrial revolution. Other areas of the world are expected to suffer. But it's just an area that I really like to be working in. Secondly, also is consumption impacts on global warming. So I went overseas to start my own venture and just to help foreign buyers and retailers source ethically made goods from Bangladesh, which is a developing economy. That was predominantly the reason I did that is because there was this event of a massive building collapsing, the Rana Plaza collapse, where thousands of people died that are working in RMG or ready-made garments industry. And as a result, there were all these social issues that obviously we had the spotlight on internationally. So in the process of starting my digital marketing firm, working with SMEs, I realized now that I look back and talking to people like Nazia and some other people in that space that I was working on a social entrepreneurship endeavor. And it's so these are the two issues. How can the fourth industrial revolution impact your ability to get employment and your children and your children's children? And how does consumption impact global warming? And how do we change people in the way they consume so the world is a better place? Yeah. It's a long-winded answer.
Yeah, that's awesome. Love that. So who would like to go next? Anyone, feel free to jump in.
I might follow on from Shadab because as a bit of a promotion for the session on Thursday with Beck Scott. So Beck is her new kind of massive venture is looking at food systems, firstly in Melbourne, but knowing Beck, she's already flagged that she's thinking bigger. And so Shadab, your point about consumption and how that has implications for climate and how the way that we consume our food and food justice and all of those issues is something that Beck is going to be talking about in the session on Thursday afternoon at 1:30, I think.
I think it's at 2.
At 2, okay. It's in my diary, it's okay. Yeah, so anyway, that's just a bit of a watch this space for that one on Thursday with Beck. And so just quickly, the social issue that's close to my heart. Nazia and I have had this conversation a few times, and I always find it a really difficult question to answer because there are just so many. There are so many that I have had personal experience with, and have seen others have experience with, and through my research have seen things. So I really can't narrow it down, other than to say I think education is really important in bringing about, giving people opportunities to have the capability to, March Ascend's words, the life that they want to live. And so, I really feel strongly that education is so important. And having been in countries and done research in countries where they don't have either access to education or they don't have good quality education, it really, you can see the difference that it makes. And so, I think education, and that's part of the reason that I do what I do. But I know that I think there's so much more we can do at so many different levels in the education system. But if we're talking about social change and institutional change, education is critical with that. So education.
Love it. Who's next? Andrew?
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit like Sally. I'm not sure that there's one that stands out for me more than others, but I guess what I've always been drawn to is trying to enable good government as a way of enabling those other social outcomes. So whether that's the way governments work with their communities, or making sure that there's kind of good evaluative processes and policy development cycles, those are the kind of things that I guess I've been drawn to as a way of then enabling the passionate and really talented people at the front lines to sort of go out and address the issues in the way that they see fit. So for me, it's government as an enabler for other people to then go and address those issues in their communities.
Beautiful. Janani.
Yeah, so similar to others, there's just so many, it's really hard to just pick one. So when I was lying in bed late at night last night after I got the questions, I started to think a bit deeper about what is it that really gets to me about all of the different issues that I would say are close to my heart. And again, it came down to that word inequality, hence why equal was my word for the future. And the reason I think of inequality, and it's not just in terms of income inequality or racial inequality or gender inequality, which is very close to my heart and going to be part of the series that I do when I do some webinars on domestic violence. I think it goes further than that, in that what bothers me is that we don't actually view or consider all human lives as being equal. We don't consider all people as having worth or value or dignity. And that's the thing that's underlying the social issues that are really close to my heart. And that's the thing that I think brings about the oppression and the injustice. And that's the thing that drives me to keep getting up every day and keep doing the work that I do. So really, it cuts across lots of different issues, but it really just boils down to the intrinsic worth in every person.
That was beautiful. I can just spend all day listening. Thank you. So I guess with that, we've kind of hit our time, right? And sorry, Bindia, this is your time to wrap up. But I will just say thank you to everyone, and just listening to you speak, I cannot wait to hear your sessions, Janani, Shadab, and Sally, and Andrew. I really, really hope that we keep working together and exchanging ideas. Thank you again so much, Andrew and Sally, for your support, and Janani and Shadab for yours as well, and of course Bindia for the amazing hosting and the idea. Is there anything that you guys would like to? Do you guys just want to finish off with 10 seconds or whatever?
Just thank you, Bindia.
Yeah, just
thank you,
Sally.
Thank
you guys are doing an incredible job. Very excited. Very excited.
Thank you.
I think we are on to something. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Bindia, thanks for having the idea, Bindia, and making it happen, and Nazia, all of your work in making it happen as well. And I can see Puya in the background there. I know you're doing stuff on the technical side, so thanks, Puya. And,
thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I'm so sorry.
Thanks, Puya.
Massive thanks.
So yeah, to
pleasure.
wrap up, thank you to everyone. I know like Sally and Nazia, you've said me, but like honestly, like just to have an idea isn't enough. Nazia trusted the idea. She was like, let's do it, Bindia. Janani and Sally, you guys backed us straight away. Andrew, you were on board. Shadab, you came in with the tech, the knowledge. You were like, this is what we got to do. And Puya, like you've got your camera on. Puya's our behind the scenes whiz. Without him, or like we didn't have.
Turn your camera on, Puya. If you want to.
Monica, who's not on today, has done the amazing marketing and the designs and everything. So it has been a team effort, and I'm excited to keep going that way. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome to SICON.
Welcome to SICON.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
everyone.